everybody in the family do the Sound of Music recreation. It's pretty
Dancing
entertaining.
around in the field.
Yeah.
Well,
Have either of you done the Sound of Music tour in Salzburg, Austria?
no.
No.
Oh,
Love that.
they have a whole bus tour devoted like half day to the Sound of Music where you go to the house that's still standing that was Captain Von Trapp's house, and
Ah,
you go to the park where they filmed Do Re Mi, and
yeah,
Oh, wow.
it
that would
is
be
hokey
amazing.
but remarkably satisfying.
I
Yeah.
was just
I
at
mean,
Gettysburg yesterday. It was similar.
Yes.
I would imagine less hokey, but maybe not. Yeah. Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah, I love that movie. Just love it.
Yeah.
It's a staple.
We all need a nanny. We need like a nanny to come along and sing us to sleep and teach us how to do music.
Well, you think about unconditional love, like that is what Maria is, right? She's the
Yeah,
embodiment of unconditional
Yeah,
love,
yeah, very good
that's
point.
true.
right?
Good
That's
point.
right. Very nice. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, everybody needs Maria.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
And
yeah,
We all need Maria.
that's right.
nuns in general, there was a book that came out 20, 30 years ago, and I think it was called The Cloistered Walk, something like that.
That
It
sounds
was
familiar.
it was a woman who spent like a year at a convent, sort of understanding that call. And
Yeah,
one thing that one of the women she interviewed said that has always stuck with me is the woman said, because I am not in a relationship with any one person, uh, just that means that it's much more easier for me to love everyone. And I was like, oh, that's nice.
yeah,
That's a worthwhile objective.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is like
Yes.
decenters romance in a way.
The
Yeah.
center's romance, but puts the focus on universal love.
Yeah.
Well, you do, you think about it, and partnership is often just like us against the world, and like that's a wonderful feeling, right? But it does create a wall.
Yeah.
Um, so I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that wall is what is that wall created out? It's this desire to be safe. Like we're going to be safe together with our family and if you're in a state of where you're accessing universal love, you're already safe. Like you're
yeah.
completely safe in a
Mhm.
You
very,
don't have to be afraid
yeah,
of
the
all of
fear
that.
goes away, right?
Yeah.
So
All
we
right,
how can
Julia,
we
we're doing it again. We're
okay,
just
we did
talking and
it.
talking and not introducing the guest.
We just go right in there, Meg. This is our thing.
I love that. I do. It's
Well,
kind of how I roll.
I met Meg through Iron Butterfly.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're both monarchs, which means not that we're queens, but of course, in our own way we are, but that we're the kind of butterfly that supports Iron Butterfly folks like Carmen, who is an
Mhm.
Iron Butterfly, uh, women in the national security infrastructure who are trying to do good things. So that's how I met Meg, and then we got to talking, and then we realized we had a lot in common. Meg, do
We
you want
did.
to just describe who you are in more of a traditional detail?
Sure. We can go that route. My name's Meg Maloney. I live out in Colorado. I'm a native here. But I've done my time in DC and elsewhere, both in and outside of the government and some international institutions as well. So, started as an attorney, then I did business integrity law, et cetera, and moved on to the United Nations. I realized that, like your Iron Butterfly podcast, Carmen, I sort of loved the whole world. I wanted to
Yes.
know about
Oh, wow,
everything.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Also, ADD is a theme in my life and my resume, but I wanted to learn about everything. So joined the UN. I was stationed in West Africa with them for a period of time, but then got pregnant with my first kiddo and came back to the States and started with the FBI. I came in through their intel route, and but also put my hat back on as an attorney, as supporting their Office of Integrity and Compliance and their general counsel. And left there as a strategist for their IT branch, did strategy, risk, and compliance work.
You
And
know
then
Arlene Gaylord?
I do. She's incredible. I'm really enjoying her recent posts now that she's doing the training too.
Yes, yes,
On LinkedIn. I love her posts and her pink Birkenstocks that she rocks around
yes.
the world.
Right.
But yes, and then in 2019, I joined Guidehouse, and I'm now an associate director with them, and I support their defense and intelligence practice. Most of my clients are in that space, but I also have the pleasure and joy of running a human-centered design team. And so I
Oh,
get my
nice.
creative fix through them as well, and just have some of the world's best graphic designers and incredible experienced design researchers on my team. So they kind of continue to keep my mind open and just kind of bring me in new directions every day. So that's sort of my work life in a nutshell. And yeah, I was delighted because very, very supportive of everything Iron Butterfly and the stories that we hear, and just see my role in this world is really to carry the message. So if I'm that butterfly, picking it up and carrying it to the next
Oh,
person
yeah,
and
that's
making
great.
those connections. And I love doing that. And got to meet Julia. She made it out to Colorado, and we got to meet at a little coffee shop up in Estes Park. And it was such a fantastic time. I was energized for like a week and a half after that, at least.
Yay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so just found a lot of synergies. And she's like, "You should come to Pandas playing cello." And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Absolutely." I love
Very
that.
good.
So happy to be here.
Very
Awesome.
good.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's one of those cases also where someone has actually heard of this show. So when like sometimes when Panda's playing what? Like, is that a zoo?
And I love the name. So, that
Well,
was
that was
that was
Julia's.
cool. There's a gravitational force there. Not gonna lie.
So what do you want to, what's interesting to you these days, Meg? We generally just have people on and we don't always talk about what their expertise is or what's going on in the world. We often just ask the question, what's interesting? So what's interesting to you?
There are so many interesting things. Again, the problem of the whole world. Where do you want us to start? I think, yeah, I think right now I'm working on trying to pull together an event that I'm really excited about in sort of the Colorado area, just to get attention on some of the exciting things that are happening here. But something that's sort of crystallizing in my mind about that right now is it's hard to talk about this event because there's nobody leading it. And so everybody I'm talking to is like, "Yes, but who's in charge?" And it's so funny because I've just been talking to a bunch of people and everybody's excited about it, and everybody's kind of contributing space or speakers or people to attend, whatever that is,
Right.
but nobody owns it. And it's funny how difficult it makes that to explain to people. And I'm finding it, I don't know, it's just making me kind of unpack this idea that collaboration at its like core is a lack of ownership, and it still thrives, right?
If it's
And
good, it thrives. Yeah.
yeah. And so I'm kind of playing with that right now. That's what I was thinking about this morning.
Well, wait
Mhm.
a minute. I have a question. Is it
Yeah.
okay? Is it collaboration that you're talking about, or is it that, Meg, you're so used to being kind of behind the scenes that you haven't noticed that you're the one, in fact, leading this charge?
Well, I'm definitely a thread through it, but I couldn't do any of it, right?
Well,
It's
but you
it's
couldn't do any of it
I couldn't
without
make it
the,
happen. Without
okay,
these
but I think I know the project that you're talking about, and I happen to know that you actually held the original vision for it, and you're the one making the phone calls to find the people to do the pieces of it. Did you not know that this is what people do when they're doing leadership?
Well, yes, I am aware that that is a way to lead, and I think if that were a leadership style, that would be something I would aspire to do, without a doubt. Yeah,
It
but
is. It's a
but
leadership style.
it's amazing I've also been thinking about strength because I've had some surgeries recently and I'm starting to feel like myself again after that. And I had two of them that I had like generals for. And so that really
Mhm.
knocked me flat in a way that I'm not used to being knocked flat. Um, and I just like it took a while to feel like myself again. And as soon as you start to feel strong, um, it's amazing how that just increases, right? And I sort of feel it's the same with collaboration. Like as soon as you start to collaborate, then somebody else has a great idea and then somebody else piles on and it's contagious. So
Right.
it might have been me at the start, but now it's branched off and gone in like another, like everybody's kind of participating and leading in their own right, right?
Right.
And
No,
I think
yeah.
like a tree, right? That's what you want.
I understand. I think I understand what you're saying because was often in a position where like what I said, people took it way more seriously than they should take it. In fact, I used to have to tell people who were analysts or, in at CIA. And when I was in a senior position, they would sort of, interpret every word I said. And I go, look, I'm often just thinking out loud. And please don't take it as gospel. Please don't believe that this is the way I think we need to go. I welcome your correction. I welcome your addition, so forth and so on. Uh, Understandably, most people in an organization don't trust the leader when they say something like that. They
Yeah.
they go, the leader is just creating a trap. It's an Admiral Akbar moment. It's a trap. And
Yeah.
so I was always happiest when I said something like that, and then people just started riffing on it, and it
Yeah.
went off and got its own momentum and went in a direction I had never anticipated or intended. For
Yeah.
me, those were tremendous successes. And the
Yes.
role of the leader in that process is I mean it's instrumental, I guess. It's like it's necessary, but I can't come up with the right word, but it's just like a spark.
I was just
You
gonna say
want
kindling. We're
Yeah,
kindling,
that's it. Yeah. You're just
right?
like a little spark and then
Yeah.
off they go. And
Yes.
that's good. That's perfect. You
That's
know?
exactly well, and you could not be happier when you see the fire raging, right?
Yes,
Like
that's right.
that's what you want. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I can give you like a specific example on this thing. I was like, let's do something where all these people get involved and you want to see all of them, you want them all in one place. And it's almost like a festival that you want to go to,
Right, right.
right? Like all the different musicians in one spot. And it's like the best festival ever. Let's do that.
Mhm.
And I mentioned it to two of the graphic designers I work with, and they're like, but we're talented and we do things. And they're like, let us get involved. We'll make a concert poster. And I
Right.
was like, that'll be amazing. So we started riffing on that. And then I got a text from one of them like later, and she's like, hey, I have a great idea. Let's take that poster and let's turn it into puzzles for the people that attend.
Oh,
And I was
nice. I
like,
like
oh my
that.
that's
God, that's so
awesome.
cool.
Right? Isn't that so cool? And I'm like, that's exactly the kind of thing that I love it when you feel comfortable to say your crazy ideas and people take them seriously and hear them. And then they take their own special magic and put it on top of it. And
Right,
it just
right.
snowballs, right?
So
I,
I
those are the
think
best moments.
I am I am so okay. Carmen and I talk a lot about leadership on this show and different ways to do it. And I'm so struck by the different conversations we have with women and men. And I'm sorry to be so gendered about it, but like I'm not going to apologize because it's also true. We have very different conversations about this, and it's just so striking. And
It's
and that women
so
tend,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe it's the women and men we pick. I'm not going to generalize to the rest of the planet, but women that we've picked so far are talking about the joy of collaboration and seeing this creative thing emerge and sharing responsibility. And here we go, we're doing this project together. And that's different from how now some men have talked about the importance of collaboration, but it feels different. It feels
Yes.
still more like, also, but
That's great.
and there's this piece that doesn't get taken care of with the all collaborative approach. And it's this when things go well, it's awesome. When things go poorly, who's responsible? We saw this recently with the Secret Service grilling, right?
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
she offered, as far as I understand, she offered her resignation originally, wasn't accepted. Then she had this grilling, and then she offered it again, and it was accepted. And it's just sort of like there was this, so who's responsible? Well, who's in charge? Do you
Yeah.
not read all of the detailed, security arrangements? And it's like, well, of course not. That would be incredibly stupid to have one person in charge of all the detailed security
Yeah.
arrangements, because that person could be compromised. But anyway, um, it 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 is it is interesting that women on average are coming from this place of almost hope, like look what we can create, whereas the men on average have been coming from this place of how can we protect ourselves from this dread, this feared result.
Yeah.
And so your
Yeah.
leadership is different based on sort of where you focus your attention. And I'd like get rid of gender entirely and just look at the difference in my attention is on dread and not wanting to regret something or not wanting to be held responsible for something that goes bad, versus my attention is on hope and wanting something really cool to come out. And I wonder if it's because women are, and then back to the gender thing, I wonder if it's because women are like new arrivals in the world of work and in the world of power. So we're
Hmm.
like immigrants. And so we're like, I don't know, let's try this. And we haven't seen so much of how we could be punished. I don't know. But of
Yeah.
course, I do feel like we've seen a lot about how we could be punished. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to think about that one. Carmen, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I found myself internally agreeing with what Julia was saying, that, and I like the phrase that we're immigrants. We're definitely new to the table. And I know when I was in, significant leadership positions, uh, I, my attitude was, well, I'm not going to 100% present all of my ideas, because I'm not sure yet whether or not I have the standing, or
Yeah.
well, I'm not sure what the right word is, but I'm accepted enough or seen as valid enough to present those kinds of ideas. So I'm always, even as a leader, I was always sort of working oftentimes indirectly
Mm.
rather than like directly.
Yeah.
But, and this is a but, not an and, but I'm not sure, another way, but it may very well be that the indirect approach is a better approach than the direct approach. The indirect approach is one that encourages people to run with your ideas and collaborate and build on it,
Mm.
and don't always look back at me for direction or approval or anything like that.
Yeah.
It that may very well be. It's certainly, I think, a more organic way to operate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the resume dilemma with women, right? Like if you self-select out of potential jobs because you're like, there are 10 requirements and I
Oh
meet
yes,
9. So I'm
yes,
not applying to this, right? As
right,
opposed, it's a little bit of that, right? But I
yes,
think there is more goodness to it too. I think too, I think there's something there with failure. And I've been, functional failure is something that I've been trying to engender in my team where we're like, let's talk about it. Let's crowdsource it. Let's share our failures because you might learn from your failure, but if you don't talk about it out loud, you might not get other ideas from other diverse perspectives on how to handle that failure in the future, right? And so if we share our failures openly and regularly, we exercise that as a muscle, we will collectively grow and we'll have better solutions than we would even if we embraced failure ourselves,
right,
right?
right, yes,
And
yes,
I think there's something there with, you know, fear of failure at different levels, and maybe that's gendered, maybe that's not. But I think, you know, we understand that if we don't get through the first time, we have to keep trying. Maybe that's the immigrant grit, right? That's the like, Well, if I don't get the first job, I'm going to keep going back and back and back because I have to, because I got to feed my family, right? You just keep going back to the well and you learn from each experience and you understand that those are building blocks for whatever success you'll ultimately have. And you're just going to keep on trying until you get there.
Yep.
Right. And I think there's an element of accepting failure as part of your path. And maybe that's because, again, there have been ceilings and there have been things that we and the women before us have learned. So we know that there are blocks and we keep working. We accept them. They're not uncomfortable because we know that we're going to hit them.
But there's such a key difference here is because, and we're all, this is so hard to break away from the gender because of the stereotype. Much of the stereotype is true, at least in our generation, our shared generation. But so I guess I sort of don't know what to say about that. But what's true is if you think that other people are just generally a threat and only one of you can have the thing that you want, which is, by the way, power, then, or power over, then you're going to behave in a different way than if you generally see other people as useful compatriots. And many of you can have what you want, which is power with.
Yeah.
Those are such different assumptions that form the basis of these lack of understandings. Like when you say to your team, hey, we'll just tell each other about our failures. If another person is a threat and you're trying to be the one who has power over, that's a threat. Like there's no way you're going to share your failure. You'll share some lame failure. Like, well, I guess I didn't appreciate myself enough or something, you know,
Yeah.
like that kind
Something
of thing,
safe.
you
Something
know?
safe.
Yeah.
It might even just be we have different definitions of power, and that's not necessarily gendered. That's within. It's like we're not using the same language, right? So we might all want it, but we actually define it very differently. So I forget which language it is that has all the different words for snow.
I think it's
So I don't want to say it wrong,
indigenous
but like,
language. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe it's like that. Like everybody wants power, but we actually all define it very differently,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Power to, power over, power with, power from.
Power for.
Yeah.
I think those nuns, power for
Yeah.
Yes.
other people,
Right.
a voice
Right.
Yeah.
for
Right.
other people. Yeah.
Well, I do think one of the things that, I have all these aphorisms or cute trite sayings that are nevertheless important to me. And one of them is that the worst human instinct is the desire to control others. And I see it in my life. I've seen it a lot, even in the most petty situation. It's, we're going to tell you, the sequence to do X, Y, or Z. And it doesn't really matter. You can get to your outcome in a different sequence, but you just want to control what others do.
Yeah.
Empirically, that happens all the time with policy wonks because they're taking an average across like the entire country and they say, this is what works to get people to pay their taxes, or this is what works to get people to send their kids all the way through high school. But why would we think that the average story, I mean, just like we have individualized medicine that is becoming more and more of a reality because we realize that the average story is actually damaging for people who are not on the average, which is like
Right.
0 people. But why don't we have individualized policy, which would necessarily need to be decentralized in a geographic region? In fact, what helps you get your kids through high school. So it's like, here's a goal that we think is important. Go meet the goal however you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love outcome-based policy. I love
Yeah.
that concept.
Yeah.
My gut instinct is, how do you enforce it? Because if you just have guidance and framework and you're asking everybody to come along with your vision, that is very hard at that level.
When you have directed using kind of direction when you're a leader because you know the best way to approach things and the team just has to execute your vision. That works really well when the leader really does know what needs to be done. And you waste a lot of time in unnecessary collaboration when you have you can somehow empirically show that the choices that you want to make and the direction that you want to go to are the correct ones. And I also know when I was at the agency and I was trying to get people at the agency to get away from the journalistic style of information sharing and more into a digital, online, continuous style of information sharing, that I had the vision, but the other people whom I was dependent upon to execute that vision, they didn't have it. And I remember the first 6 weeks or so, it wasn't going well. And then luckily, I was sent off to do a class on program management at some federal executive institute. And they said, okay, different styles of leadership are work in different situations. And the directing, directive style of leadership works when you're trying to introduce a new idea. People are not going to know people aren't going to see what you're seeing. And so you really have to tell them what to do. So I came back from that course. I mean, this is exactly true. I came back from that course, and the next meeting I said, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to be responsible for this. And it was amazing. It was like everybody started beavering away. They were just looking for that direction. So that was an interesting experience for me because it made me question a lot of my beliefs. And it made me understand that, different situations, different contexts
Yeah.
require different leadership styles. So, and,
Right.
the military knows that. That's why the military is very directive. You follow orders, although over the years they've become less so because,
Yeah.
again, they've learned how it's limiting.
Yeah. It makes me think too of like, and you can fill in the blank with whatever personality model you want, but like the DISC model, I've
Yes.
found that one very accessible because people get to self-identify rather than be identified, and you can do it in a really short period of time. And it's so simple because they're only 4 letters, right? And so it's not like people don't get lost in it and lost in what they kind of remember what they are. And I mean, I think
What
there's
does
so much
DISC
value.
stand for? I don't know what DISC stands for.
I should Google it while we're talking. It's from 1928. I remember that. And so the words are a little bit weird, but I think of it, I've like reassigned it. I think of one as like the D is much more directive. Then the I is sort of inspirational and the
S
S is
is
supportive, but it's something else.
supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's something I can look it up. And then the C, is consciousness or something like that. But I think of that one as being, much more concrete. Those are the ones I've renamed DISC in my mind to help me remember what types are. But the Ds are the really like, they need a checklist. They want to get there first. They're super competitive. The Is want to bring everybody with them and kind of pull them along and have the vision, right? And they can describe the vision as if it's looking at something that already happened in the past. And the S's care about all the people around them and are very human-centered. And then the C's really want to have a plan. They need to have the facts. They need to have the understanding. They do not need the niceties. They want to get down to business, but they need to know where they're going in great detail.
Wait,
And,
which one are you?
they they're I definitely trend DI. I'm probably more I than D, but it depends on the situation, right?
Right.
And what I've found is it depends on like the situation, whether you're at home with family or whether you're at work or whether you're leading something or whether you're cog in the machine. I can try them on differently, but I think what's more important than answering what you are is asking who the people you are trying to communicate with, what
Yes.
they are, because you can adjust your communications accordingly. And I think leadership's the same way, right? If you're in a super intense mission environment and you need to get something done immediately, directive's going to be the way to go, right?
That's right.
No special snowflakes there, right? But if you're building something new that's never been done before, you might need to be a lot more collaborative.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe there's something there where we need to come up with like a personality model for for leadership, similar to DISC or one of those, right? And I'm sure it's probably been done. But
Yeah,
if you could do it.
What it does, what it doesn't capture is the dynamics that you brought in. To take that same model and then make it sensitive to the context. Like you said, you're at
Yeah.
home, or you're trying to model something for your children at home versus trying to help your children finish their homework. And you can't do those at the
Well,
same time
that's
for
one of the
various
reasons
reasons.
I don't love Myers-Briggs, because I've changed a lot doing Myers-Briggs over time.
Me too,
And I
yeah.
think questions don't take into account being a mother, frankly.
Yep. Mhm.
And because I answer my questions now very differently, because there are humans in my life that I will do anything for, anything. And they
Yeah. Now,
light
how
up my
many
life. And they fill my
kids do you
bucket.
have?
I've got five daughters.
Whoa, that's a good number.
Yeah,
It's a
it
good
is.
number. It's a great number.
And what's their age span?
They're within 6 years of each other. So my oldest is 12 and the twins just turned 6 this week.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Identical or
chaos all the
fraternal?
time. What's that?
Identical twins or fraternal?
They're identical.
Wow.
Wow.
Nuts, right? That was not something I saw coming. So that was my biggest surprise in life, without a doubt, biggest
Wow.
surprise. But yeah, so I mean, when I take Myers-Briggs and answer those questions with those humans in my life, I'm totally different on the chart. If I answer all those questions with a work lens, I land in a different spot, right? And so I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't think that they've nailed that ability to flex with the fact that we live in different environments. And I think
Yeah.
women, as primary caregivers in many instances, live in those split worlds more often.
Yes. Yes.
So those models don't fit us as well.
I mean, the simple way to remedy that would just be to take every model assessment that you're doing and go through it twice. Do this for work, now do it at home.
That'd
And
be a
even,
really fun experiment, just to see
yeah,
how stark a difference they were, how different they are.
yeah, and it would be interesting to
what
see if,
is the Myers-Briggs that you think is most accurate?
I
for
can't
you?
remember the letters, but I know it's called the Commander, whatever one the Commander is.
Oh, the
That's the one
Commander. Yeah.
that's the one I get the most often.
well, you're
Uh,
certainly extroverted, there's no doubt.
I'm not the Commander. I know that.
Yeah, you and
I
I are
actually
too
go
introverted.
introverted sometimes. But again,
I, I,
I'm
be- I
extroverted when I'm
believe
here for
you.
my kids.
I believe you, but that's sort of like the same way that I'll go extroverted sometimes. It's sort of like putting on a costume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same for me. Oh, I'm gonna act up now. Okay. Ooh, okay. Yeah.
But I always
So
think of extrovert and introvert as like where you charge, and like I charge solo
yeah.
or with one of my little kids snuggling me and just spending time like, and
Oh,
that's
me
the
too. So that is
before
more
kids, it was
introverted.
solo.
That's
And now
more introverted.
with kids, it's a snuggle. And
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
happy.
But that's
So what
practically solo because they're like part of yourself.
They are. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. They are.
so what have you just off the wall question, but what did having what did you learn from having 5 kids? What are you learning from
Every
having
day,
5
something
kids?
different. Oh, Carmen, that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big one.
I think two things jump to mind. One thing, I just saw people differently after having them. Like I saw more humanity, seeing people as somebody's kids, seeing
Right.
somebody as somebody's mother. Um, it just changed how I saw the people in the world.
Yeah.
In a really positive way, in a grounding way, in a way that helped me to sort of, you're never going to weed out all your biases or anything like that, but it helped me to see them in just a more human way, right?
Right.
And then I think also I am not by nature a patient person. Anybody who knows me could tell you that. And so just hearing something or being in a moment and not reacting to it and trying to hone that skill and how important it is not to react in your first instinct and to just wait And even sometimes, I'm not saying I do this all the time, but I aspire to do it. Just waiting to react and waiting to sort of, let that first impression go, and just that patience is so important,
Yeah.
So I'm
I
thinking like,
have a
oh yeah, go
formulation
ahead.
for that. I would, when I was younger, 30, 40 years ago, I used to regret the fact that I had a delayed bristle as opposed to an on-time bristle. So somebody would say something and I would, ruminate on it consciously or unconsciously. And then I would think, 4 hours later, wait a minute, what were they saying to me? It's totally wrong. Delayed bristle, very ineffective. I can't do anything with it. So my aspiration was always to develop more of an on-time bristle, more of an on-time bristle. And I have abandoned the on-time bristle thing. I think delayed bristle is the best kind of bristle to have.
I think I absolutely agree, because as somebody who's been a lifelong practitioner of the on-time bristle,
On-time bristle. Yep.
it is not the best way to handle any situation, work or otherwise.
Yep.
But I think there might be a third option, which
Oh,
is
okay.
the delayed, what's like a relaxed bristle? I'm thinking about
Well,
my
that's
dog's hair when it
it's
stands
a
down.
not bristle. It's
Like the
observing.
non-bristle is if
Yeah.
you wait even longer, that you're not bristling anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, so
time to
the
hit it.
bristle never even manifests.
Right,
So
because
no,
there's nothing to be afraid of because you realize it was just someone's like, it was just like a
yeah,
little burp or something.
the bristle never even manifesting is like the fourth level. That's like the elevated, like I hope I get there by the time I'm 80. But if you let the bristle hit, you don't react, and then you kind of articulate why you're bristling, and then you still let a little bit of time go so that you're no longer bristling,
Right.
and then you broach it. I
Yes.
think
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
sweet spot. The ideal is never bristle, but I
Right.
gotta tell
Yeah.
you, I don't know. I'll talk to my future self, Julia, but I don't know if I could get there in this lifetime.
And this then circles back to one of my favorite rules for life, which is to always avoid humiliating other people.
Yeah.
I think that is just such a destructive outcome.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Action.
it's not only destructive for the other person and for society because they have to experience that other person's effect of being humiliated, but it's
Yeah.
destructive for your soul. I mean,
Oh,
when
of
you're
course.
humiliating someone, why would you even need if you have the feeling that you need
Yeah.
to humiliate someone is because there's something that you're missing,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And so instead of taking the insight like, whoa, I'm hurting today, you go with, I'm gonna do this thing that adds more damage. So yeah.
I think it goes right back to what you said at the beginning, Carmen, about like, the worst instinct of people is to control other people.
yes.
Because by humiliating them, you're owning the narrative. You're taking
Yes,
control,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
And
form
this
of goodness.
desire for an on-time bristle is like 90% of the time, that comeback is going to be humiliating. It's going to embarrass the
Yeah.
other person.
Yep.
And, you just should never do it.
You know
Yeah.
what you can do instead of bristling though, because I also feel like it's not ideal to not take care of yourself if you're
Yeah, you have
being
to stand up for yourself, right?
like, so you could just say, like, one of the things that I've done that works is to just to say, ow. Like Carmen, one
Mm.
time I said something to you and you responded in this beautiful way. I said something like, oh, it was about boomers. I said, oh, the boomers need to move over so the Gen Xers can get in there. And you said, well, that makes me feel irrelevant.
Mm.
And I was like, God, what a great, you weren't humiliating anyone. You were just reporting on how that made you feel. But it was in this context where you knew that I cared about you and I wouldn't want you to feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it's only in a context where you know the other person cares about you or is like a caring person where
Right.
you could be vulnerable enough to say like, ow.
Yeah. Ow.
Wouldn't it be great if you could say that in any context, though, not having to have it be secure, right? And
Yeah.
just be able to say it, but without anything else attached to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what we do, like in a business context in a meeting. Sometimes that's what's happening when we use humor. So somebody says something in a meeting, you could go, ouch, or you could say, got up on the wrong side of bed this morning, did we? It's that kind of funny comment, but that funny comment, if you think about it, is telling you much more than that person is witty. It's telling you that, oh, they reacted uncomfortably or whatever to what I just said. So that's important input for you in terms of
Yeah.
your emotional and social intelligence.
Isn't it weird how different humor, like it can be that defense mechanism,
Yes,
but there
exactly.
is some pure like fun humor and trying
Right.
to delineate between those two, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've always
Interesting.
used humor. It's gotten me in trouble in my career, but clearly, overwhelmingly, it's been a net plus.
Oh, well, I think it's good if it also helps you laugh and it helps people enjoy the environment they're working in and you're having fun. It's like
Yes,
if it comes at somebody else's expense, very different,
right,
right?
right.
But if
Yeah,
it kind of, you know, if you're having fun and it's a way to lighten up sometimes some of the very difficult things or, serious things that we're dealing with, I
yeah,
welcome it. It's
yeah.
good to laugh.
It's a little tricky though, because like Carmen, you and I both have a little bit of we can have dry humor and people don't get that we're making a joke. And then you're like, oh no, backpedal.
It's, it's always unfortunate.
It is. It's really bad. I'm like, oh no, you don't, right? I miscalculated. You don't know me well enough to know that, of course, I would never say that. And therefore, now you think I've said this horrible thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's bad.
So
You're
what
having
books are
all these
you
like
what
visions
books
come back right
are
now. I
you
can
reading
tell you're
right?
like,
What? Sorry.
What
no,
did
I
you
can
say?
tell that Julia's remembering some things right now.
So what books are you reading, Meg?
Oh, do you know, I don't have time to read a lot. And by the time I'm done at the end of the day, first with work and then with like life and the smattering of when they crisscross in between the day, I am pretty damn tired. So I read a lot less than I used to. So I'll tell you that for starters. And there are a lot of children's books and whatnot thrown in there. Um, Although I do love some of the children's books very, very much. So that's fun. So children's books are just kind of out there. And the one that I'm super excited to buy, um, so excited. Chandra Donaldson's got a data detective book coming out for little kids about
I
cybersecurity.
heard about
Ooh,
this. She posted
ooh.
it on
So
LinkedIn. Yeah.
I'm really stoked about that. And I'm like, I love all the, rebel stories, good night rebel stories or good
Mm.
night stories for rebel girls. That's a big one. We have all the volumes and, fun ones like that. So kids books are what I read when I'm not reading work more often than
Well,
not.
that's probably
Um,
very good for your mental health, is all I have to say.
there's one too, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but I will send it to you guys. It's a friend of mine sent it to me, and it's about a horse and a boy. And anyway, it's got a lot of life in that book too. So some of them are phenomenal, and I actually bought it for folks on my team too, because they're like, this is a cool book, and cool illustrations as well. But the one that I kind of want to reread right now, and I got out to reread it with one of my daughters, is A Woman of No Importance, because I do love the Virginia Hall story.
Mm,
I mean, no what small wonder that I love Iron Butterfly, but
mm-hmm.
um, I do love that story because I just think when it comes to perseverance, like wow.
Yeah.
So that's one that I kind of got out to reread right now. Um, and then I'm kind of boring in that sense that a lot of my extracurricular activities, I'm reading work related
Mm-hmm.
things. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work related reads, a lot of LinkedIn articles. I get to read Julia's though, which is fun. I get
Yes,
to
yes.
read about things like the certainty fix, which I loved, and that had me spinning for a few days. So yeah, so that's kind of not the best answer. Can you tell
No,
me
it's
what I should
it's
be reading?
It's a
it's a,
Because
great
it's
answer.
an
I'd
awesome
love
answer.
some recommendations for real books.
Those are
Well,
real books.
I
Yeah, that's true too.
I go through spurts and I'm in a reading spurt now. I finished reading Tuxedo Park, which
Mm.
is I read a lot of nonfiction, which is the story of this guy. Alfred Loomis, who was a Wall Street person, became incredibly rich, and but was mostly interested in physics. And so he had like his own private stable of scientists, mostly physicists, that he sort of funded and encouraged to work on problems. And as a result of this kind of informal collaboration that he built, the argument is that the US was much better prepared for like the Manhattan Project and other necessary advances to win World War II because of his informal, just because it was a passion of his, collaboration with all sorts of scientists. So that was sort of interesting. I would say it's not that well written, so I think you can kind of,
The story.
the story is not as well done as it should be.
Yeah.
What are you reading, Julia?
Oh, I just finished Blake Crouch, the guy who did Dark Matter, that series. So he has a book called Recursion. So his writing, I don't love. It's again one of these things where there's the story that's fascinating and a little bit of the characters, but Recursion is about a woman. And when I tell you the thesis, you'll know why I love this, but it's about a woman scientist who inadvertently creates a time machine, and about how things get really messed up with the space-time continuum, and how she keeps going back to try to like not create the time machine, and how she keeps having to create the time machine. And it's really quite something. I listen to it on Audible, like I do many of my books that are fiction. For some reason, I do better with nonfiction in like paper and audio for fiction, but not always. But yeah, that's a really compelling read because you have to find out how it works out. And I'm not going to tell you how it works out.
Yeah, very good.
Very interesting. I'd love to hear that. I also think it's interesting because I would go the opposite with, which is audio, which you read, right?
Well, but with nonfiction, I want to underline it and put little stars and say like I disagree
Oh.
and stuff. But with fiction, I just get carried away and I'm working out or whatever, So I guess that's my reasoning, but that's just local to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been,
Yeah,
when
it's
you
been
asked,
great.
Carmen, she asked, should we get together ahead and like plan out what we're going to say? I'm like, ha, 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 ha.
I'm telling you, I was uncomfortable because I'm like, I plan everything. I like to plan things and just have some, have an outline, have structure, yeah. So I was like, we'll just get on and talk about anything.
Yes, we'll,
Like,
at the end, Julia will give it some kind of brilliant title that will make it all make sense.
Carmen
Well,
does the same thing when she handles the titles. So yeah. Do you want me to try to do a cartwheel? Shall we see?
oh
Yes,
yeah,
let's see.
yeah.
Yes.
Let's see if I land
Yeah,
on my back.
don't hurt yourself though.
Well, the thing is, I won't. But if I land on my back, just know everything's fine. I'll put up my hands to indicate.
Oh,
That
okay.
sounds good. Let us know you're all right.
This is, I mean, maybe we're doing the sports announcing here. Julia Mossbridge is preparing for a
She's ready to go.
cartwheel, and
She's
here
waiting
she
to-
goes.
People she loves.
Yes, here. Oh my
Oh, yeah.
goodness!
Stretch,
Oh,
stretch.
I'm nervous, aren't you, Meg?
Oh, she did it. She
Wow.
landed it. She landed
Oh.
it.
All right,
No
Julia.
injury.
Could you
I'm
see?
glad.
Could you see
I'm
that?
glad we didn't send
Yes,
you out for
yes, I was
injury.
providing color commentary. It's show off.